Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Learn to Code with Noob. Today we will be continuing to the part 3 of our React Native series. In this series, I will be explaining uh, and giving a deep dive related to the life cycle of the React Native components, how they actually work, and I will be sharing uh, some ways on how we can detect and debug or log when lifecycle changes happen in React Native component. Keep watching. Alright, so in this section of video we will go through and walk through the React Native component lifecycle. So in the previous section of the video I discussed about class component and what are functional components. So the other reason why we want to use class component is the reason is if we actually want to do something special related to any life cycle, uh, related to any life cycle method or any life cycle event which happens in the component, if we want to do anything special in it, or if we want to just see how the life cycle works for the React component, we can actually use class component. So over here we in my previous video I did like made a class component called app2, right? But I didn't have these lifecycle methods in that. I only had this area of the code in which I had a render method, right? So generally in class component you only need this render method um, if your component is simple enough and small enough. And I would recommend, like, if you only have a class component with the render method, what I think is the best practice is you should like just make a functional component, like a function component, like I have over here. Like just use a function component. But yeah, if you want to do something special related to any lifecycle or something, you can use class component. So here I have a class component called app2. So in that I have mentioned a constructor. So a constructor is generally used for if you want to initialize or set default states um, in your React component. That is when constructor comes in handy. Um, so so yeah, you can use constructor for state initialization. Now I will actually give you so there is already a very good diagram on the Facebook React Native website which goes through like how the life cycle comes into play on the React side of the world. So so this is like you can just go to like this projects dot whatever React lifecycle method diagrams. I will also post this link, um, post this post this link in the description of the video. So here if you can focus on so the component actually goes through three phases. So one is mounting, the other one is updating, and the next one is unmounting. So when we say mounting, it is when the component is actually being created or initialized. So when the component is being created or initialized, it the first thing which it does, it calls the constructor, right? And after that it calls the render function. So render function, it will tell uh, React that what is the component or the composition of components which will be rendered on the screen. And after that, React updates the DOM and references. So whatever is the output of the render, the React just updates the DOM. So it is basic. So this actually diagram is for web, but most of the part are applied to the mobile app too. And then it calls component did mount. So eventually when component is mounted, the component did mount is called. So so in the fragment world of Android, we can just say on view created. So first is on create view and then is on view created. So this is your on view created basically. So this is the mounting phase and the other phase is updating phase. So whenever we change the state, right? So whenever there are new properties in the component, whenever we do set state, so set state is the method in which you basically change the state of the component. And if we do a force update, so because of these, the render function happens. So when we say the component is going through updation phase or updating phase, it renders the component again. The render function is called again, and then the React DOM is again updated, whatever the output of the render is, and then component did update is called eventually, that the component is updated. The third phase is unmounting phase. So this unmounting phase is basically, you can say, when the component is getting destroyed or being removed from the DOM, then you can say that is an unmounting phase. So now you can also see like above over here, like there is a render phase and there is a line drawn, right? And then there is a commit phase. So you can see like when this mounting, like this constructor render method, right? So these constructor and render methods, they are on the rendered side of the component, like when the component is actually rendering on the screen, right? So that's the only reason why it is the best practice to actually use pure function or pure components which has no side effects in the render method or in the constructor method. So I have actually explained what are the pure function or pure components in React. So we are actually talking about this constructor and this render method over here, right? So what we are saying is that this render or this constructor, this constructor, they shouldn't actually change the state. So over here we are initializing the state like this, right? But we are not actually changing the state. Like we are not just saying, okay, update, like re-render over here, right? And the other thing, and after this rendering happens, like whatever is the output of this render method, the React basically takes that output and shoves that into the DOM. So that phase is called as commit phase, right? So can work with the DOM. So in this phase you can work with the DOM and you can run side effects. So now you can like update the states and do different things after the component is shoved into the DOM. Now you can do anything. Now you can do schedule updates and everything, right? But it is after the rendering has been done. So some of the important aspects. So on in my example, what I have done is I have this constructor, and for each overridden method, so one is component did mount, component will unmount, component did update, or the render, right? So I have basically put a log in here so that we can actually see what is going on when the component is rendered on the screen. So now I will just make sure my demo project is all right. So now what I will do is I'll just open the terminal. I was actually testing this thing. So what I'll do is open this terminal and I will open my demo project. So we will actually look what are the logs after this bundle log. All right. So now it just says running demo project. So the first thing it logs is constructor called initialization. So this is the first thing which happens. Constructor is called, initialization happens of the React component. The next thing which is called is rendering. Rendering is triggered. So after constructor, our render function is getting called, right? So just for a quick overview, so this is our render function. So in this render function, what I have actually done is I've changed this thing a bit. What I've done is I've added a safe area view. So for now, you don't have to like understand it more. I will make more videos regarding the widgets and or the components. So what the safe area view is doing, it is actually making sure that our everything inside the safe area view is below these notches. So you can see this is the notch of the simulator. So if I'll just remove the safe area view, this press me will be over here. Okay, so now I have this pressable component which basically says that whatever the component will be inside this pressable, you can click on it. That's the higher level description of it. So the pressable, in this pressable we have wrapped a text component which just says press me, right? So it's basically a, a virtual button, I would say. And this pressable, I have an on press method. Basically on Android you can have like an on click listener which you set, right? And I believe this is the same thing with iOS too, on the native side. So on press, and you have a function. So over here what I'm doing is I'm actually calling the set state method, right? So remember the set state method I have explained in this lifecycle method. Like if we call this set state method, the component will render again. Because why it is happening is because we are actually changing the state, right? So we are changing the state of this component. So during the initialization phase, we are setting the state. Okay, this will be my initial state of the component, right? And when we actually tap on this virtual press me button, we change the state. Okay, so during the initial thing which we saw was the constructor was initialized, the rendering was triggered. So when rendering is triggered, we will see this thing over here, and after the rendering is committed, right, to the screen, then we see this thing, right? Now what happens if I tap on this press me, right? So if I tap on this press me, right, you will see this thing is changed. It is saying changed pressed, right? So now what happened in the life cycle? So what happened is there is no constructor initialization which is called, right? Component did mount. This was the last thing before pressing the button. So after the button was pressed, what happened was rendering got triggered again. So the component rendered again, and after that component did update was called. So this means that component is updated, right? So this is the higher level overview of how the life cycle is working. So now this changed pressed, so you can see the component is before it was showing changed, and after that it is showing changed pressed. So now I will just do this again just to be clear. So this is the initialization phase. So the state is text change. So now if you see, this was my initial state, right? And you can also pay attention to this app component. In that I have a property called text, and that property is of type any right now, or a read only object. And this read only object, I'm just passing in whatever the state is, right? And this app component is actually just printing whatever that state object is, right? Just it is just printing, so nothing special about that. So if I have initialized my state with this object, it will just print that thing, right? Text chain. And if I pass this object, right? And if I tap on the press me, this render function will get triggered, and this dot state, which I have updated to changed pressed, right? This dot state will be now change pressed. So when I'll do press me, see, change pressed is there. So this is a simple overview of what is going on in the life cycle. Now the only thing which I left off is the unmounting thing, which I'm kind of not clear in React Native when unmounting happens. So if you guys have any way in which I can test it, or I can just see, okay, where unmounting is happening. So what I actually thought was, like, if you kill this app, right? If you kill this app, the unmounting will happen, but it doesn't actually show anything in the log. So I'm not sure when this unmounting happens. Anyways, I will, if I'll find that answer, I will clear that up in my next video. So yeah, here is your lifecycle methods in React. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, please don't forget to click on the like button. If you don't like this video, please mention why in the comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. Keep learning.